Now we would like to focus on the call itself, and we provide you the technical details, how to apply, and then I'm happy to invite Birgit and Stephen to explore with you the concrete topics of water sensitivity and building decarbonization. Alex, the floor is again yours, and then after that you're relieved from speaking a bit.
Thank you very much. I will try to be short and to the point and stay in the time we reserved. So currently, we receive application for two new topics that have been decided in the intergovernmental meeting. That is water sensitive cities, and the second one, building decarbonization, integrated renovation programs, and local heating and cooling plants. With that said, if you can give me back the power to move the slides or move it for me, one of them, then I could go on. Okay, thank you very much. So with that, to simplify it, how you can do that. The first step will be to familiarize yourself with the call details. That you can do in more details by reading the background document. It's a fundamental document to understand the call and to secure that your application is well aligned with the expectation and therefore get higher score and maybe get in. And the second document, ex-ante assessment, I will very shortly mention them in a second. And the second step will be to access and fill in the application form. Is the only way to which we receive the applications, not by email, not by post. It's via the EU survey dedicated, which my colleagues have very carefully worked in, and they put a lot of attention. 2 words about these key documents. The background document, which the experts have been provided under our coordination. They present the call context and the selection process. They go in detail and look on the key aspects of the thematic focus. So what is under these topics? One is bigger than, more complex than the other. The category of partners, this comes back to the question we had before, who is eligible and how, and the selection criteria. They will explain it in detail. I will just put a general framework. The document is publicly available online. You can download it and have a look, and it's very recommended to read it. Now, if you would like to understand in more details the topics and to have a better understanding, the expert did an excellent job in a very short time, and they present in this document the full analysis of the topic. They very nicely underline trend and evidence. They talk about regulatory environment. They do the mapping of the regulatory environment, and this comes back also to the question before. And they did some recommendation for future thematic partnerships. With that said, the last thing I want to underline, as I said, my colleagues here together with Isabella, Sofia, Luisa, they work intensely to prepare also the survey. You have preliminary information at the beginning, so we understand who you are. You will be asked to indicate if you want to apply for a partner or as a coordinator, to be a coordinator. We will ask for details so we are able to contact you back. And then you have, if you apply to be a partner, you'll have specific selection criteria that you'll fill in. If you're a coordinator, you'll have a bit more. And I will indicate that here. Again, there are 2 main criteria, the horizontal and the specific. For the horizontal criteria, as I said before, the key idea is to have diversity, to allow as many type of organization and levels to participate. The second diversity is in terms of size of cities. We will need to have at least 1 small and 1 medium-sized city. Then it's about geographical balance, so to have as many countries represented and geographical situations, so I mean coastline, mountain areas, hilly areas, and so on. In terms of prior involvement, as I said before, organizations that have never before been in an urban agenda partnership will have a small priority on that side. Coordinators, at least one of them will need to be a city and will be maximum 2. And just short to conclude, in the survey, you will see for partners 3 main criteria of information: motivation, expertise, outreach, resources. They have dedicated questions. And if you're a coordinator, on top of this, you will also have questions about project management, commitment, and kickoff meeting. And with that, I would let the moderator introduce the experts and let them guide us in the details of the topic. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you very much, Alessandro, for this contribution. And now you're relieved from speaking. I would like to add that the working language in the urban agenda in the partnership is English. So this is the same for the applications. We only accept applications in English. Because you have to work in English, you have to prove that you are able to follow the content of the work in the partnership, and there's no translation provided during the work. This is just a small addendum to make this clear. Now I would like to pass the floor to our colleague Birgit. Birgit, you were focusing on the topic of water-sensitive city, and now I would like to ask you to explain what can we understand of this topic, water-sensitive city, and what you suggest the thematic partnership could focus in the next 2-3 years. Birgit, the floor is yours, and please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this great opportunity to present here. And finally, after having done so much work with the ex-ante assessment, background paper, and so on, seeing all the cities coming together and interested in this topic, the topic of water-sensitive cities. What is the situation? You know it probably better than I. Many cities experience too much water or too little water. And it's not that the south has too little water only and the north has too much water only. At different times over the year, many cities are challenged by both. And that makes it extremely difficult to manage with conventional approaches. Major drivers of the situation is climate change, but also new urbanization pattern, urban sprawl, land use management, but also the state of water infrastructure. And what we can see is that the conventional way of managing water in cities does no longer work. So just supplying water and getting rid of wastewater is not the way forward. What we need is a transition to a water-sensitive city which manages water in a circular approach. And that could make water from a problem towards being the solution itself. And one of the big questions was there are so many subtopics linked to that, and how could a thematic partnership manage all that? So there's really a need to focus that. And what I proposed in my ex-ante assessment is to center the perspective on water quantity, so on excessive water and water scarcity in cities, and then taking the whole thing from there, going to what does it mean for wastewater treatment challenges and related energy demands? What does it mean for the quality of runoff, of surface water, of groundwater? And then again, what for the quality of life? So center it. I know there are many more topics which could be linked to it, but I think you have to focus in order to make really progress. And focus on how to design cities water sensitive. And I gave a couple of recommendations presented on the next slide. If you could just move. On better regulations, better funding, and better knowledge, that's a structure. So there are many EU regulations already in place, but none of them specifically on the topic of water-sensitive cities. So there are regulations and policies on water, on urban, on climate change, and so on. So the idea is to figure out how to better mainstream the water sensitive topic into these existing and ongoing policies and regulations, which are often also combined with funding. There is already an initial mapping in the ex-ante assessment. And then exchange practice on multi-level and territorial approaches, because cities themselves on a purely local level cannot solve the problem of water. On better funding, we hear very often we need more funding, but there is already a lot of existing funding available, and it could be a task to analyze the options for better use of that existing funding. And in addition, to collect practice on other types of financing, innovative types of financing. What I could also see from the analysis is there is a huge bunch of knowledge on water sensitive cities, on solutions available, but it is scattered across different sources, across different countries, institutions, and so on. So what could be done there? You could create a better cross-sector awareness for the opportunities of water-sensitive cities. So going out of the domain of urban water management, but also linking to nature, to health, to the economy, what are the opportunities for them, and then getting at them as allies in the process to support it. Improving the access to knowledge on the solution, exchange good practice, not just on the solutions, but also how the national and regional level can better enable cities, can create a better framework for them to implement actions. And then, of course, questions like capacity building and improving data and indicator that describe water-sensitive cities and level of achievement. So that's in short on my topic.
Yeah, thank you very much, Birgit, to give an overview on the topic of water-sensitive city. I would like now to invite Stephen Lorimer. You are the expert on the next thematic, and it's the building decarbonization, integrated renovation programs, and local heating and cooling plans. I think it's the longest name of all the partnerships we have. And you can explain us a bit what's behind, what we can expect behind this headline. Thank you, Stephen. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. It's so Jonas said hello from Lille over in France, and I'm actually just across La Manche, as they call it in France, over in London. And actually here, and I'm just going to take 30 seconds here and say London has been in the center of building decarbonization in the news worldwide over the last day, because an independent report in a fire in a housing block that killed 72 people was released yesterday. It took 5 years to get there. And it was something that was done as part of building decarbonization for energy efficiency. And it shows what can go wrong if coordination is not happening, if governments get so focused on saving money and the voices of people that are involved and that are the occupants are not listened to. And so it was a reminder to all of us how much really needs to be done across governments, the private sector, and working with industry. And that's why building decarbonization is so important, not just for climate change, the energy grid, but the safety and security of the occupants of all those buildings. So 30 seconds done. And I would say that the scope is was set, and the long name is sitting there, because we know that a lot of cities across Europe are grappling both with the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive and the new guidance inside for cities to really explore integrated renovation programs. And what are those? Those are examining what are the cost-effective measures that can be done for buildings that are spatially related in spatially related blocks. And that's going building by building or even property by property, and actually how cities can help building owners, both themselves as the building owner and also the private sector as well, to do it in a more to renovate in a more integrated way and accelerate the rate of renovation. They're also dealing with the Energy Efficiency Directive and the requirement for any city over 45,000 to have a local heating and cooling plan. And that is going a bigger, wider strategic scale. Like, what does a local development document look like for a city or a group of local authorities to be able to coordinate district heating, other programs that need to be done in the future. And of course, on top of this is the future electricity market design. We're moving so much energy onto heating, so much electricity demand, creating it through heating and cooling for electrifying heat in buildings especially, and creating flexible energy resources, solar, batteries that work with electricity grids. How does that support the decarbonization of those buildings as well? So that's the kind of larger thematic scope, and let's go a bit more in detail. Next slide. And start thinking about the pillars that we set around better regulation, better knowledge, and better funding. Of course, as I said before, that you're trying to create, you're trying to use the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive to create integrated renovation programs. Well, what criteria does a local authority use to identify them? And how does that support that integrated renovation program, support the local heating and cooling plan at a bigger strategic level? And of course, we've been through many years of one-stop shops for energy efficiency, for supporting individual building owners to be able to to renovate their buildings. Well, how do we actually do that at scale with building, not individually one by one, but in a more coordinated way that could even mix private and public sector owners of buildings? And that's how you actually make that support real and make it understandable. Let's put it that way, understandable for everyone that's involved, because the complexity increases once you have spatial related buildings that are involved. Of course, we're also thinking about the regeneration of the city as well. How does it impact on urban regeneration for the social and economic goals that a city has, not just the environmental ones, and also the impact on climate change adaptation, because this isn't all about mitigation through reduction of energy use or the use of renewable energy more effectively as it becomes more abundant in the future, but the adaptation and resilience of that city. Next slide. The next subtopic really focuses on the market, every national market, but also there will be, there is future work that's coming within the Commission on the future electricity market design, how you influence that in the future. Communicating with renewable energy communities, that's one part of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive that you have to take into account in creating your integrated renovation programs, and of course how those heating and cooling plans that are being designed by cities or implementing fund infrastructure. There's grid reinforcement costs that are involved with that building owners are shouldering, and also energy flexibility services that could be ones that they take advantage of and create income through the renovation of their buildings in future years. Those are all things that kind of feed into the funding side, and of course, the cost effectiveness of those spatial related buildings is something which is expressly put into the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, which I can add for a second was being finalized while I was writing with Jonas and Isabella the ex ante assessment. So it was almost you were designing this live as the legislation was being completed and revised, and those questions that the EIB or national infrastructure banks are asking about, well, how do we create a blended finance for implementing integrated renovation programs? How do you actually lever in that private sector investment and use the public sector to de-risk and provide that confidence in the market to bring them forward? Because this partnership is about how you actually bring forward renovation across all buildings in a city regardless of ownership, and not necessarily just the ownership of the buildings under your control as a city. And then finally, promoting those economic benefits of renovation fairly and equally. A lot of some of the territorial impact assessment, one of the comments that came out when it was being done on the energy performance of buildings directed by ESPON was that, especially in Southern and Eastern Europe, those who were already economically ahead were benefiting more than others, and also across Europe, people that lived in smaller and medium-sized cities, again, those who were already economically ahead tended to benefit more than others that were a bit behind. So those were things to keep in mind as well. Let's go to the next. I'll hand back to Jonas.
I think we make it just a short break. I would like to mention a few things and then give you again the floor, Stephen, to you. The topics suggested by Stephen and Birgit are the results of the ex-ante assessment. And the ex-ante assessment, the purpose of this ex-ante assessment was to look on the huge scale of existing initiatives, topics on these two themes that are currently on EU and national and an academic discussion, and to summarize and to give some recommendations or suggestions the partnership could focus on. But the single orientation and the actions, the definition can be adjusted. It's then on the side of the partners when they are selected to decide by themselves in which direction the partnership can go finally. And there's no need to cover all of them. You can adjust it, but Birgit and Stephen has done a very, very helpful first step, helping the partners that they don't need to start from scratch when they start to work. It's just a little addition to and explanation how you can consider this content. And now, Stephen or Birgit, I don't know who would like to continue. Maybe Stephen with the categories of partners.
I think it was to me to continue, and I'll hand back to okay, back to Birgit again. Excuse me.
It's Birgit, sorry.
Okay, so there has already been the question, what are the categories of partners in such partnership? And in the case of water-sensitive cities, they should, of course, be linked to water management in cities. And up front, there are cities of all sizes, small cities, medium-sized cities, and large cities, as well as metropolitan areas, functional urban areas, and agglomerations. So there we are very keen to have as many as, not as many as possible, but have a huge bunch of cities in this partnership, and there should be at least one small size and one medium size in it. Then beyond that, also regions and regional development agencies could become a member states through their relevant national level ministries and agencies. Could it be on urban or on water or environment? It really depends on the member states, but the same holds for the partner states, Norway and Switzerland. And then we have European and national city umbrella organizations. And finally, we have a category on the next slide, other stakeholders, which could be NGOs. I think that was also a question earlier. NGOs with the specific focus already mentioned. Other local or regional entities related to water-sensitive cities, such as water authorities, water boards, river basin district authorities or similar. Then, of course, academia and research centers, and EU organizations dedicated to the topics, social, economic partners and businesses at different levels, at EU level, at national level, as well as city level, and also national associations that represent local governments, in particular smaller and medium-sized city, as we know, it's more difficult that they participate themselves. So there are many different categories, but having said that earlier, cities have a priority because it's the urban agenda, but the others are also very warmly welcome. And then I think it's to Stephen.
Yeah, I think this slide repeats what was said before, so I think we can go to the next slide. And there's some additions that are slightly different from water-sensitive cities. Of course, we're looking for urban planning institutions to participate as well, because there's very much an urban planning, urban regeneration focus that we have. We know that many cities or many member states have associations of building owners, both especially in housing. And of course, we know that many of member states have trade associations for renovation and the energy transition that are focused on delivering the work, and having that communication with those who are doing the delivery is important as well. The rest, I think, is a bit of a repeat for research organizations in academia that is focused on the energy transition, grids, building renovation, and project management. Next slide. And I think we'll come back to Birgit again.
It's again, what are the specific selection criteria for water sensitive cities? So meaning the selection criteria on the topic. First of all, we want to know what is your primary motivation to participate? Is it sharing own experience? Is it learning from each other? Willingness to contribute to EU policy, and so on? Please show us what motivates you, and also support that by short examples, concrete examples. And then the specific criteria expertise has a couple of questions, and is, I would say, one of the most important here. That is on your experience and your expertise on the topic. And we have listed there different subtopics like working in EU regulations, or knowledge on existing EU and other national funding, and so on. It's not necessarily that you have to have experience on all of these subtopics, but on one or a few of these. So don't be afraid or shy away if you cannot tick all of them. That what is more important, that you show us by concrete example what your concrete experience is there, what your role has been there. But be short and precise, that we really understand where you come from, where you stand from. And then there are even some more specific criteria, like what is your experience in transformative urban water management, or do we have more experience on collaborative multi-level governance in terms of water management in cities? That should be answered in the same way as explained before. There are two more specific criteria, which is the outreach. So, and the fourth one is on the human and financial resources that you will intend to dedicate to it. Again, said, make it for us as concrete as possible, make it short, because we have to read through all of them carefully, but make it precise, that we understand it. And now it's Steve.
I won't repeat a lot of, I'm benefiting from Birgit saying things in general the first time around, so I don't need to repeat this, but of course, thinking about the expertise that you have, of course, renovation programs you run before, district and neighborhood approaches to renovation, like even better, that you might have experience with, and of course that those who have done energy master planning, the kind of documents that or studies that you've done in the past that probably supports local heating, cooling plans as they emerge in the future. That's something which is a positive previous expertise that you could bring to the table. We're also saying, and this is something which might generate some questions, the criteria of local authorities, that we're asking local authorities to say whether they anticipate that their integrated renovation programs have a balance of residential and non-residential use, and that's to make sure that there's a balance of social and economic goals that are being covered within renovation programs, that it's not concentrated in one sector or another of that city, or one particular type of renovation program or another, to be able to provide that balance across. And this has been discussed many times internally and within the Commission, but we made a decision that we wanted to see that from local authorities, that they were thinking across like multiple situations of integrated renovation programs and spatial related buildings in their city, especially as that for most European cities, about 60–70% of the land area is mixed use anyway. And if you're talking about spatially related buildings, of course, you're going to have multiple uses of those buildings. And that's why we asked for that criteria. Next slide, please. And of course, for the coordinators, we asked for a bit more information about their ability to project manage not just themselves, but multiple stakeholders, remote stakeholders, other cities that are involved, their commitment, and this is the amount of commitment and, again, human and financial resources they can put in place, and an idea of how they would get things going, because it's really important to get going quickly at the beginning, and giving us confidence that you can find your feet really quickly in the kickoff meeting, because you have an idea of what that plan is and how you get things moving quickly, is really important for us. Not saying that you're dictating how it's going to happen, but because of course you have to work with others, but how you actually might kickstart this the partnership. Next slide. And of course there's criteria that we use across all the applications to be able to make decisions on who to make the award to, and we do this with the Secretariat, with Jonas and Isabella and Alessandro and the others, and part of that is, as Alexandra said before, we're make sure that there are going to be at least one small city and one medium-sized city that are